Let's review the periodic table. On the periodic table, we have the elements, and they are divided into three main groups. We have the metals, the metalloids, and the nonmetals. I have highlighted here in yellow the nonmetals that are on the right side of the periodic table, with the exception of hydrogen, that is placed on the left side of the periodic table with group number 1, but hydrogen is classified as a nonmetal. Highlighted in green, we have the metalloids, which are actually dividing the periodic table into the other two groups. On the left side of the metalloids, we have the metals, including the transition metals that are not showing in this short version of the periodic table. But transition metals are classified as metals. On the right side of the metalloids, we have the nonmetals. The elements on the periodic table are also classified depending on a group and a period. Periods are going across the periodic table, and we have 7 of them. So across the periodic table, we have the periods. There's an example of period 7, starting in francium and ending all the way to the right side of the periodic table. Group numbers, or the main groups, right? I'm not including the transition metals. Okay, the main groups are groups 1 through 8. And these are vertical columns. Okay? So going down on the periodic table, we have group. So I have numbered here groups 1 through 8. We have names for group 1, 2, 7, and 8. Group 1 is the alkali metals, starting in lithium, not counting hydrogen because hydrogen is a non-metal. Group number 2 is the alkaline earth metals. Then we have in group 7 the halogens, and in group 8 the noble gases. Another thing about the periodic table is that we can actually predict the charge of the ions for the elements. For example, metals on the periodic table, they will always lose electrons, and everything is in general, okay? So metals tend to lose electrons to form positive ions or cations. And then we have the non-metals as, in general, gaining electrons. There's always exceptions. Gaining electrons to form negative ions or anions. We can actually assign charges to the ions for the elements based on their location on the periodic table. So +1, +2, +3 charges for ions for metals on the periodic table in groups 1, 2, and 3. And then we have negative charges for non-metals starting in group 5, going to group 7. So group 5, the elements in group 5, for example, they tend to form ions with a charge of -3. That's not always true, okay? It's in general. Then we have elements in group number 6. In general, they tend to form ions with a charge of -2. And then elements in group number 7, in general, they tend to form ions with a charge of -1. So we can kind of say that in general, metals are always losing electrons, and the non-metals are always gaining electrons. This information is going to be very important when we are predicting the formulas that we can get for compounds between the elements. Okay? When you have an ionic compound, right, we're going to combine certain elements on the periodic table that are classified as ionic compounds, and we can actually predict the formula depending on the charge of the ions.